Michael Jackson has probably the most famous case of vitiligo in the entire world. How that entire situation, from him having it, how he handled it, the interview, um, it was all based, for me, it kind of set the precedent of how I was received as far as my own vitiligo. So I wanted to discuss that with some of my really good friends. So I am going to turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves. We will start with Miss Kim Boyd, and then we can pass it to the next panelist.
All right. Sharon, thank you for having me. I'm Kim Boyd. I am from the Detroit, Michigan area. I'm a member of the Be Strong support group here in Detroit. And I have had vitiligo now for 7 years, and it's been an interesting journey. And I appreciate the conversation today and you inviting me here today. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Like they do on TikTok. Who's next?
Go. Hi, I'm Jahira. I'm from Green Bay, Wisconsin. I've had vitiligo for 12 years now, since I was 4 years young. I'm going in as a junior this year in high school, and I'm very excited for that. And that's pretty much it. Oh, I'm also the leader of the Jahira Dariel Foundation. We've done a hygiene drive. We do bowling every April, but it got canceled because of COVID this year. But it's just an annual bowling. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Guess it's my turn. I am Sidney. I've had vitiligo for 20 years this year. I was in the military when I first had it, when I first noticed my first spot. So being in the military, diagnosis was really simple because they make us go to the doctor all the time. I've been very comfortable with my vitiligo for a very long time. And one of the things I want for everybody is to just find their own way, to find their own comfort zone in it if they have it. And I am, Sharon, what's my title again?
You are our executive content advisor.
Yeah, I'm the executive content advisor for Litty Ligo. And I think that's it for my introduction.
And last but not least, we have our community content manager, Aviva Khan. If you want to just say hi or just wave, we're gonna get a wave. Okay, we got a wave.
Hi, nice to be here. My name is Aviva. I'm coming from Houston, Texas. I do not have vitiligo. I work with Sharon as a community organizer in disability rights, disability advocacy.
Aviva has been amazing. She is, I tell her all the time, she is my brain on paper because nothing would make sense without her. I'm very grateful that she has volunteered her time to be an ally. So I am very grateful to her, and I'm very vocal about that because it's just my So we will move on to Michael Jackson's diagnosis. So I wanted to make sure that, I clarified that Michael Jackson did in fact have vitiligo. Dr. John Harris, he is a associate professor at the University of Massachusetts in Worcester. And he had a blog where he talked, about the facts about Michael Jackson's case. He said, after his death, his autopsy report stated that there were patches of light and dark pigmented areas on examination of his skin, and vitiligo was listed as a diagnosis in his medical history. So yes, he did have it, and he was diagnosed with it. So my question for the panel, and feel free to jump in at any time and talk amongst yourselves, is how has Michael Jackson's diagnosis affected you at all, if it has? As I said, I grew up with, do you have Michael Jackson, disease? People being very intrusive because of that interview, thinking that it was okay to kind of just accost me and ask me a bunch of questions about Michael Jackson. So that was my experience, which is why it was very important for me, for us to have this conversation, because I feel like it has affected a lot of people. So what about you guys? How do you feel?
Well, for me, as someone who didn't have vitiligo during most of the time that he was dealing with his, I remember, because, you know, I was a kid, I idolized Michael Jackson. And then when the skin's color starts to change, you're trying to understand it. Because if I always felt like later in life, if he'd have said something earlier, that it could have went a lot further to bring some understanding for him, because everybody just wanted to say he was, you know, kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better term, off the wall. And I just felt like had he said something, it didn't have to be in the beginning, because you know, it's a journey, so you've got to figure out how you deal in your journey. But you know, there was a long time you could see, even when you look back in pictures, you can see that he had it if you look closely enough. I just felt like if he had communicated something before those later interviews, because those later interviews were amidst other controversy. So, you know, it just added to the, to people thinking that they could just say anything. So I just, when I look at it, I wish he had said something earlier.
For me, I don't know if I paid that much attention to it growing up with him as a musician. I didn't doubt he had it. I didn't know that much about it, actually, having only gotten it 7 years ago. I think I paid more attention to the music than anything. And I don't know if he, now that I know what I know about vitiligo, having lived with it for the last 7 years, having my ups and downs with it, mine is a little bit different from everybody else's because I just have segmented. So I don't know if he knew enough to say something. And when you're in that limelight, you know, are there a lot of people handling him saying, don't say anything, you can't say this, it's not going to sell records? I don't know if we put that responsibility on people, you know, or if he was in a mental place to handle that. But I know that there was at times, does he have it? Does he not have it? People believe, people don't. I don't think I drew an opinion either way because I just didn't know anything about vitiligo at that time. And I sure it's not something I sought out because I had no need to during that time growing up. So it was just like, where's the music? Let's dance. And he is who he is and move on. Later in life, like you said, Sidney, you know, maybe as he matured and had that wherewithal that he could have. But then, like you said, by then, there's so many other things going on that it took away from that. And he's fighting other battles and things like that. So then I think it just got mixed up with everything that was going on with Michael Jackson, the entertainer, Michael Jackson, the singer, being, you know, it's just so many things he was carrying at that time. So I don't know if it's fair, for lack of a better word, to have expected him to do something he maybe wasn't able to do at that time.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And our last young lady, do you have any thoughts? How has this affected you at all or anything?
Growing up, his diagnosis didn't affect me, but some kids at school were calling it the Michael Jackson disease, which I've never heard of before ever. Like, I've never heard them. Like, I felt that I've heard he had vitiligo, but I've never heard it been called the Michael Jackson disease. So I was more confused, if anything.
I kind of had the same sentiments as you, Kim. Like, I really didn't even know that's what was going on with him until people started asking me about it. And I responded with anger. Like, I educated myself. I was like, no, he doesn't have it. He just, you know, because I didn't understand. So I definitely reacted with anger.
I was just saying, I think calling it the Michael Jackson disease was lazy. It was, one, because that was the only person that in the mainstream who anybody knew anything associated with vitiligo, so it was lazy to call it that. But it's funny because early on in my journey with vitiligo, sometimes that was the only way to get people to understand what it was.
Yep.
So sometimes I use that lazy euphemism to get people to understand what it was, and then later you add more context to it. So then you get them away from that, because this is what it is. It's, you know, Michael Jackson didn't, you know, it's not just his.
Right.
And sometimes I do things out of humor too. So in those explanations, I would say that kind of humorously, but eventually I wanted to get people away from it, because I just felt, if at the very least, I thought it was lazy.
Would you say that then, thinking about that, Sidney, like people find it hard to say vitiligo, and that was the only reference to it? I wonder if it was out of lack of knowledge that it was called that too. And like for me too, when people ask me, like I remember being at Target one time, oh my God, and this kids say everything and they don't care, and the parents are all embarrassed, and this little girl was like, look at her face. And you know, I don't wear makeup. I started out trying to, but it was just too much of a task. But the only way I can explain it to the parent was to reference Michael Jackson. I didn't call it the Michael Jackson disease. I knew the 7-year-old would know, you know, like who Michael Jackson is. So talking to the parents, I referenced him because that that was the most common name in my area. I would probably reference, you know, the news guy, Lee Thomas here, you know, trying to use names like that to help people understand what it is in the explanation. And then, like you said, that could lead into greater conversation with that person to help with awareness. Right. And explaining what it is. It's hard because when you're put in that situation, you don't really know what you're going to say. Even if it's happened like 1,000 times in you know, outings and just running to the store and running errands, there's no one way to respond. It just hits you and it just comes out. It's like I don't have a prepared speech when I'm walking around Target, you know. So I think whatever comes to mind first comes to mind.
Right.
So let's move on into his treatment. So his treatment, a lot of people, you know, thought that Michael Jackson did, in fact, bleach his skin. But he did not. He used the only FDA-approved treatment for vitiligo, which is a cream that basically breaks down your pigment and stops your pigment from coming. So I'm going to read another excerpt from Dr. Harris's blog. There is treatment, though, that can remove the remaining pigment if someone's skin, in someone's skin, if they have vitiligo. And then he names the creams that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It is not surprising, it's not too surprising that Michael Jackson would use Benequin, which is what he used when they did the autopsy. It was Benequin 20% cream is noted amongst his medications. So he did use the FDA approved treatment for that. This is why he went from having clearly black skin to very white skin. In fact, Oprah commented in an interview after Michael Jackson's death that he had no pigment in the skin of his hands, that they were essentially translucent. Benequin would do that and could do it relatively quickly. And after about 12 months from use, from available pictures of Michael Jackson, his skin color seemed to change significantly sometime in the late 80s, which would make sense if he was diagnosed in the early 80s, tried to treat it for a while, and then decided to go the other way and use Benequin. It's very clear that he had it. It's very clear that this is the course of treatment that he decided to go with. Knowing that, I want to know what your feelings are. Me personally, I believe in everyone healing in their own way. If you're not harming yourself, if you're not harming others, I believe, you know, you try what works for you. Some things work for others, some things don't work for other people. But I feel like your vitiligo experience is very unique. So initially, I was upset about it. Initially, I couldn't wrap my head around why Michael Jackson couldn't just love himself enough to stay out there as, and be this champion for people with vitiligo.
Mhm.
And I always, in the beginning, I kind of viewed it as him kind of taking the easy way out. Then I educated myself. I learned about his upbringing. I learned about his mental health, his social health, the fact that he is on this platform of this global platform. It's not like he was small potatoes. So the pressure, there were so many different factors there. We're never going to really know what was actually going through his mind. So I have to admit that my mind changed a lot about his treatment. And honestly, his situation changed my mind a lot about treatment in general. Personally, I wouldn't do it, but I understand more why people do pursue treatment. So those are my feelings. What are you guys' feelings?
It's Kim again. I think that you're right, that the more you know, the more you grow and your perspective will change over time. I think that people do in a specific point of time what they feel best for them, because we don't walk in their shoes where they are with vitiligo. It's different. Although it may look the same, the outcome of it, the white patches, it's different how we all deal with it. And they could be different day to day. I had an opportunity to do a treatment a few years ago that I chose not to do. One conversation we have had in our support group is, if you could change your skin to be one way or the other, would you do it now? And a lot of us express, well, then where does that put me? Am I still an advocate? Do I still talk about it? So I think that, again, with him being in the limelight and spotlight like he was, maybe that played a part in the decision he made. I don't know what it's like to be someone who's lost all of their pigment, and what that does to your psyche, or what it is to walk in that middle ground where you got most of this and a little bit of that original color. So I think it matters where he was at that time and how he mentally was dealing with living with vitiligo, or not living with it, and making that, was it hindering you? Does it stop you in your tracks? Does it keep you from being successful? And it's that mind thing that it plays on us. So I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling now, but but I think it's a lot that plays into that decision.
I agree. I never really had an issue with his decision. And, finding the little bits of things you can find about his mindset at different points of his life, he was very much, he felt a responsibility to his fan base. And I don't know, I think between that and the fact that he was, there's a vanity to being famous. There's a vanity to, standing up in front of people and having the influence he had. I just felt like he needed, in his mind, to find one way or another to be, I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws. I don't want to say normal, because there is no normal to me. But he was looking for the best way, I guess, for him to be comfortable and continue to do what he was doing. I don't know. That's all I can guess, because nobody, because he didn't give that much. And even in the interviews at the end, they were kind of off to me when it comes to, because people were looking for certain things, and it really wasn't the vitiligo. They were really into other things in his personality and in his life. So I just think that those questions were almost an afterthought. They were the obvious questions because you're looking at them, but they were just kind of the surface questions. I think it was stuff he wanted to say because he had heard some things said about himself, but I don't think that was the focus for everybody, really.
In the beginning of my vitiligo journey, I did UV band treatments in 2013, and it made my vitiligo spread rapidly. But I'm very comfortable with my vitiligo now, and I would not choose to do treatments ever again. Because of that reason, that it just spreaded like so much faster than if I would have just let my vitiligo be. So with Michael Jackson, like I could see like why he would want treatment coming from me. Poly in progress.
A lot of people may or may not have seen this interview, so I think it's important to view the context of, you know, one of the rare moments where Michael Jackson discussed his medical history. So I'm going to play it. It's about 3 minutes long.
Just recently, there was a story, and I know one of your attorneys held a news conference. There was a story about you wanting to have a little white boy play you in a Pepsi commercial. That is so stupid. That's the most ridiculous, horrifying story I've ever heard. It's crazy. I mean, why? Number one, it's my face as a child in the commercial. Me when I was little. Why would I want a white child to play me? I'm a Black American. I'm proud to be a Black American. I am proud of my race. I am proud of who I am. I have a lot of pride in who I am and dignity. It's like you want an Oriental person to play you as a child. Does that make sense? No. So please, people, stop believing these horrifying stories.
Then let's go to the thing that is most discussed about you, I think, is the fact that the color of your skin is obviously different than it was when you were younger.
Yes.
And so I think it has caused a great deal of speculation and controversy as to what you have done or are doing. Are you bleaching your skin? And is your skin lighter because you don't like being Black?
Number one, as I know of, there is no such thing as skin bleaching. I have never seen it. I don't know what it is.
Well, they used to have those products growing up. I used to hear always use bleach and glow, but you'd have to have about 300,000 gallons.
Okay, number one, this is the situation. I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help. Okay, but when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me.
So it is.
It's a problem for me, okay? I can't control it, okay? But what about all the millions of people? Let's reverse it.
Okay.
What about all the millions of people who sit out in the sun to become darker, to become other than what they are? Nobody says nothing about that.
So when did this start? When did the color of your skin start to change?
Oh, well, sometime after Thriller. Around Off the Wall Thriller.
And what did you think? I mean,
it's in my family. My father said it's on his side. I can't control it. I don't understand. I mean, it makes me very sad. I don't want to go into my medical history because that's something that's private, but that's the situation here. So please, when people see something like that.
I just want to get this straight. You are not taking anything to change the color of your skin.
Oh God, no.
You did not purposely.
We're trying to control it, and using makeup evens it out because it makes blotches on the skin, and I have to even out my skin. But you know what's funny? Why is that so important? You know, that's not important to me. I'm a great fan of art. I love Michelangelo. If I had a chance to talk to him or read about him, I would want to know about what inspired him to become who he is, the anatomy of his craftsmanship, not about who he went out with last night or why he decided to sit out in the sun so long. What's wrong with, I mean, that's what's important to me.
So I do have, I think, one more question about as far as Michael Jackson and his vitiligo. So my last question to the panel is, have you seen the Oprah interview before today? If you did, how did you feel when you saw it, and how, you know, if this was the first time seeing it, how do you feel after seeing it? You know, for me, the first time I watched this, I did not understand. You know, for me, I was just kind of like, I didn't even realize that Oprah was very wrong with how she was questioning Michael, you know, about that. I was just so eager to understand, you know, what was going on with him, that I didn't even really understand how intrusive Oprah was, and how that really kind of opened the door for people thinking it's okay to poke and prod at people with vitiligo openly, publicly. And it kind of blew my mind to have this different of a perspective now that I'm older. But, you know, again, we didn't have support like this, like these wonderful groups. All of you have, you know, HFAM, friends, you know, all of the different groups, all of the different programs, organizations, people in general who are educating people and getting awareness out there. Something like this could never happen today without somebody being like, how dare you? You know, so times were very, very different back then. And as I used to view, you know, Michael Jackson as, you know, like, why didn't he stand up more for himself? But he absolutely was. But because of his soft-spoken demeanor, you know, and things, it was perceived for me, I perceived it as kind of, you know, a plea for understanding. No, he was pissed off, you know? So yeah, what do you guys think?
You know, now that I'm watching it and I have I've seen it before, but now that I have vitiligo, I look at it with different eyes. And I agree with you, Sharon, about how Oprah was questioning him, but she wanted to push him someplace, and did. And with that line of questioning and the way she asked the questions. But yeah, he was angry. And, you know, I look at it and now I get mad too. Like, how dare you ask him that? You know, because we know what it feels like to be questioned about that. Or especially for people who have gone and lost all of their pigment, to question their ethnicity and who they are from the inside out hurts. So I look at it with different eyes now. I could see him trying to fight for it. And like I said, with his soft-spoken demeanor, it didn't come off as harsh as it probably would come from one of us today. But I think he was doing his part in speaking up. But like you said, at that point, now they're interested. I think Sidney said it, they're interested in so many different things about Michael. She wasn't interested in vitiligo at all. She was more interested in getting a story about how he could change his color and why his color is changing. But I didn't feel like it was to educate. I think it was to poke and prod. I think the agenda for that line of questioning had nothing to do with really trying to learn why his skin was changing.
Today was my first day seeing the video, and I agree with all of your comments and like how Oprah was questioning him.
I had seen the video years ago, and even then I thought Oprah really wasn't looking for the answer she got. It was almost like they didn't have a conversation beforehand, or almost like she pulled the question out. You know, a lot of celebrities get vet questions before they go on the air, and it's almost like she pulled that question out of a box on him, and he wasn't expecting it the way it came out. I actually thought he handled it well for him, for how he expressed himself in interviews at the time. I thought he handled himself well in that, it's just that, you know, I think in that interview, Oprah was trying to be a reporter as opposed to an interviewer. So she was trying to get a scoop on something. She was trying to, I don't know, it almost felt like a bit of a hostile question for Oprah to me. And it goes back to, I heard that you wanted to have a white boy play you in a commercial, and it's like, really? That wouldn't even be something he'd agree with, you know that. So I just felt like it was a bad question. I thought he handled himself well for who he was at the time. But it was, but he was upset. It wasn't just like, you know, I'm not asking for your help. I'm upset that you're asking this question. I'm upset that I have to answer this question. And why is it so important? So, and like you said, Kim, ask that today, and you might get a different answer because I have no problem talking about my vitiligo. I'll talk about it to anybody, depending on how you speak to me about it. Except kids, like you said, kids will say anything, so I give kids a pass. But once you get past a certain age, you might get a certain response. And I think because it was television and Oprah, and he was who he is, she got the response she got.
Oh, absolutely. Like, and it's like, it was like watching two different interviews when I was in that different space. I was so furious at Oprah, you know, once I did my research, once I figured out, and it did feel like a gotcha type of thing, you know. And when Michael Jackson said, you know, it makes me sad, I feel like, unfortunately, that was the consensus for vitiligo. Michael Jackson said vitiligo makes him sad, so it makes everybody sad. And that's where my frustration came from. I have a very strong personality. My parents, especially my Aunt Beverly, rest in peace, they instilled in me that, be who you are no matter what, love who you are no matter what. I had that. And very clearly, Michael Jackson, we know, if you know about his upbringing, he did not have that. And it's, I just wish that, well, I'm glad that we are now in a time where, people can express their own feelings about their vitiligo and it be their feelings. It's not a general consensus. You don't have to be completely okay with it. You don't have to be okay with it at all, but you should accept yourself as you are. That is what I do believe, So with that being said, those are my thoughts about vitiligo. What would you tell someone who didn't know what vitiligo was? They approached you and they didn't say anything. They haven't said anything. So how would you like to be approached if somebody was to come and ask you about your vitiligo, but they don't know you, but they genuinely want to understand? How would you approach that situation?
I think about one of your shirts, Sharon, that says you can ask respectfully. So I get people's curiosity, but you have to be respectful. You can't just approach someone. I get the ignorance, but just be respectful out of curiosity. Don't ask me if I got burned, or don't do that, but just ask in some way that lets me know that you're genuinely interested in knowing what happened to my skin. And I will gladly, I'm like, Sidney, I'll tell you anything, and explain it. Or we can Google, I can send you to some resources to find. And I've had people ask me at work about it, and out of curiosity want to know. So as long as it's respectful and you want to really learn and know and understand, then I'm okay talking about it. But you have to be respectful.
Yep. Jahira?
Basically what Miss Kim said, just a respect factor. I mean, it's all about how you approach someone with vitiligo, and it's about how they've been approached before. Some things trigger certain people with vitiligo, some words trigger people with vitiligo to not want to talk about it, or so you just have to come in with the open mind about vitiligo.
I have my preference would be for somebody to just, I'm a little more forgiving when people come and they're a little ignorant. So if they don't, if they have no idea what to say, if the only thing they can equate it to is a burn, then I'll accept that, depending on the tone of voice you use, depending on, there's a lot of things that can be disrespectful. It's the tone of voice. You can ask a good question, but if you ask it like you're disgusted, I'm going to respond in kind. I'm not going to walk away from you. I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm going to respond in kind, because I'll educate you and insult you at the same time. But I'll get the point across that, hey, maybe you should ask that another way, but here's the answer to your question. And I try to treat vitiligo like I try to treat how I work, because I deal with the public. So I always think that I'm an agent for the company. So when I deal with people trying to explain vitiligo, I try to think about every other person with vitiligo when I'm explaining it, because you don't want everybody to think that you're always going to get a nasty response if you ask somebody a question. I always try to treat kids really well, because kids have no idea how to ask it. They look at it and they see something different than what they're used to seeing. I mean, that's with anything. Kids will ask about anything. So I would prefer somebody to go, what is, what's the issue with your skin, or if you can make the assumption, but you can try to make it honestly. Don't try to make it like you're trying to be smart or you're trying to be insulting, because I'm that one. Like I'm gonna give it to you the way you give it to me. And I don't have to curse you out. I'm very good with my words, and you'll walk away knowing that you'll get an answer and an insult, and it'll be almost polite. So,
I like that, Sidney. I'm that one.
I'm that one.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that. I feel that. Like for me, if somebody, what I do with adults, I think I've taken to doing this with most adults. So if an adult comes up to me and they're like, "What's that? What's going on with your skin?" I go, "Hello, my name is Sharon." And they usually go, "Oh wait," you're like, "Yeah, you don't know me from a hole in the wall, but here you are prodding at my very personal medical condition. Thank you so much for that." Like, you know, I think that in 2020, you know, some people would get that. Like, but for me, same thing with kids. Oh, I love my wristband. I always got a wristband for the kids because they love being kids love being a part of something, and they love having new information. So when I give them the wristband, I explain what it is. They're always fascinated. Like I always have them guess how many people have it. And when I tell them the real number, they all go like, "Wow, oh my goodness." I'm like, "Yes, all those millions of people." So, you know, I'll see them in the street or I'll see them, you know, in my daily travels. And if they have on the wristband, they'll put it up proudly. Their parents will tell me like they have not stopped talking about vitiligo and what they've learned. Like, and it's very, you know, it hasn't always been this way. Talking to kids, I used to turn, my vitiligo was really spread. I used to turn big red anytime anybody even mentioned vitiligo around me. I couldn't have the conversation. But you know, it's kind of a practice makes perfect type of thing. And like Sidney said, you're gonna get some of the right ones, but you're also gonna get some of the wrong ones.
I remember in the
I'm
very
right one.
when I was first diagnosed and I didn't have the words to explain, I had some awareness cards made. They were like 4x6 cards, and I put my face on it and I put an explanation on the back. I put our support group. So, I mean, of course, over the years I've learned and I can recite it by heart, you know, everything. But in the beginning, I would just be like, here you go, take this card and give them away. So that helped in the beginning, but now I got it. I'm like Sidney now. I'm there. That's gonna be on the shirt. Watch me, Sidney.
Okay, all right.
That works.
Does anybody have anything else to say? Anything you want to say before we close this out?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
thank you.
Panel. Like, you know what? And you guys, listen, you young actors, yes, okay, represent. Like you young advocates, like you guys are like, I can't wait to see how y'all turn up awareness in general. Like, I really wish I had a bunch of y'all when I was younger. I probably would have put something like this together a lot sooner. So I am very excited for what the future looks like with you guys. I'm very secure in what the future of vitiligo looks like with you guys. So I am going to close this out. Thank you to our wonderful, wonderful panelists. Ms. Kim Boyd, please check out Positive Expectations, right?
Yep, thank you.
Our consulting company. Mr. Sidney Head, I mean, we have some things that we're working on. I like to I explain Sidney. Sidney is my Frank Ocean. You know, we don't know when he's going to drop, but we know when it drops, it's going to be amazing, you know? So please be on the lookout for that. No pressure, Sidney, at all, but be on the lookout.
I'm working.
And Miss Jahira Hawthorne, check her out, her wonderful, wonderful foundation. All the work she does. Is your support group still Vit Friends Wisconsin, right?
Yes, we're with Vit Friends, and I also have my own organization in Green Bay here.
Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you panelists. Thank you Aviva for being my brain, of course. I will see you guys hopefully in a couple weeks at the Triggerish event. So goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.